Hello, Muse. It's me. I'm sorry we didn't have a conversation last week, but, well, actually, we did have a conversation last week, but it stayed on the hush, on the down low, on the DL, because because I said some things in it that I didn't really want out into the public. So you'll have to forgive me that one tiny trespass. But at the same time, I wanted to come back this week and sort of talk about the same thing with the addition of maybe something else. It's hard out there, Muse. It's hard out there no matter what you do for a living, no matter who you are. But the thing is, something I've noticed over the past few weeks is that there's been a lot of douchebaggery going on. And the writing world is not immune to it. I saw, within the span of 1 week, a publisher that went under because of certain behaviors. They were called out on something and they really showed their ass. They were not kind. They were not in the right. And the court of public opinion pretty much said, bye-bye. So they closed. A few days later, I read tale of an author that pretty much did the same thing. They were caught. Oh my gosh. The behavior that they showed in public to certain people was truly despicable. And this was a very talented writer. And that talented writer has been pulled from anthologies. Publishers won't touch them. Readers won't read them. Now, I have tried very hard since the get-go to be very transparent with how I work and to try to be as good a person as I can and to be upfront about everything. And I think I've succeeded at that. I know that I'm very opinionated, and there are people out there that don't really much care for my opinions. And those are more of the political bent, Muse, so you don't have to worry about that. I'm going to talk about politics here because that's not what we're all about. But I am very opinionated in that. But at the same time, I try to be very open and understanding and kind to all people. And I'm going to give you a little analogy. I'm going to tell you a little anecdote that tries to hit home why it's important that you be a good person. Because the world, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. I'm not going to name any names because I don't want anything to get out. I don't want to say the wrong thing about the wrong person or the wrong entity. But I have relationships with different publishers, with different editors. And I have tried to approach my relationships with publishers and editors in the same way that I approach the craft of acting. Let me tell you how I do that. And this is something that I always taught every student that I ever had. And it's actually it's mentioned in Defying Gravity. When I go into a show, now I started this, I was indirectly taught this in graduate school. When I go into a show, a brand new show, outside of making sure that I am doing the best work I can, or hopefully better than the best work I can, I have one goal. And that one goal is to make that theater company want to hire me again. And it comes through in everything, in the way I relate to my fellow actors, the way I relate to technicians, the way I relate to the director, the way I relate to those in charge of the theater, and the way I relate to the script and my characters and my work and everything. It comes out in every aspect of what I do. Because it is a small world, and there is a ton of competition out there. No matter what artistic endeavor you are trying to achieve, there is so much competition. So, I've always approached it because I think this way. If given 2 actors, if a director is given 2 actors, or a casting director is given 2 actors, one actor is quite possibly the most brilliant actor that has ever walked the face of the earth, but they're a douchebag, and people don't like to work with him. And the other actor is a very competent, very skilled actor who just happens to be someone everyone wants to work with. They love working with them. That director is going to cast the competent, skilled actor before they cast the brilliant actor. Now, that might not go the same for Hollywood, but on the stage, in the realm of theater, that's the way it works. You're going to hire the person that people want to work with, because it is a team effort through and through. Now, the same thing holds true with the world of publishing. It is, regardless of whether writers want to admit it, it is a team effort. You have the writer, you have the beta readers, you have the editor, you have the proofreaders, you have the publisher. It's a team effort. And no one's going to want to hire you if they don't want to work with you. So when I go into a new publisher or work with a new editor, my goal is to make them want to work with me again. So I do everything I can to make that happen. And recently I had a book that I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. And an editor friend of mine said, well, this publisher's worked with you before. See if they'll take it. And my response was, well, it's not really in their wheelhouse. This is a different beast altogether. And they said it won't hurt to try. So I said, fine. So I reached out to the publisher and I said, publisher, I have this book. This is what this book is about. If you want it, it's yours. If not, I'll publish it myself. And the publisher's reaction was, we'll take anything you write. We have faith in your work, and we like to work with you. Mission accomplished, I'd say. And that's not me bragging. It's not me patting myself on the back. Because that, in particular, was more about the way I work with people than it is my writing skills. Now, hopefully my writing skills are up for the task. But this is about not being a dick. It boils down to that. The world of art, and I'm talking all of the mediums. I'm talking about portraits. I'm talking about oil paintings. I'm talking about directing. I'm talking about music. I'm talking about dance and theater. Everything, all of it. It's a small, small world. And unless you are a absolutely one-person show, and you do not need to depend upon anybody else from start to finish of your artistic endeavor, then you owe it to yourself and to the world around you and to anyone who would consume your art to not be a dick. And it's really not that hard. It is so easy to not be a dick. And yet some people seem to think it's the hardest thing in the world. Some people think it is their job, their duty to be a douchebag. The world of art doesn't have room for douchebags, especially right now, when theaters are closed. Hundreds of thousands of people are out of work in this country in that arena alone. And the world of professional acting already had an extraordinarily high unemployment rate. And now no one's employed. So, being a dick right now, it's like being two dicks. You're like two dicks in one. What we need now and forever are artists to work together. Are artists to want to make other people want to work with you. I've said this for a very long time about the publishing industry. And that is, we succeed together or we fail together. And right now, we're kind of on the border of success and failure. We're struggling a bit. We're struggling a bit for a lot of reasons. Number one, the foundation, the cracks in the foundation are starting to leak a little bit. And a little bit of that douchebaggery juice is getting out. And we need to plug up those holes with kindness, with whatever it is that we've got to plug those holes, we've got to plug them up. And the other reason is we're in the middle of a pandemic. And a lot of people, like 50% of the people just in the United States, are unemployed. So people don't have all this extra cash to spend. So they're not reading like they used to. They're not purchasing music like they used to. They can't go to concerts. They can't go to theater. They can't go to movies. So we've got to be creative in the way that we present our art. But at the same time, we've got to be kind. We've got to be kind to those that would consume our art. We've got to be kind to those that create art in any medium. We've got to work together to make this happen. To get through this period of time, we've got to work together. And you can't do it being a dick. Every time I read about a writer or a publisher whose career is ended prematurely because they were being a dick to somebody, it's like a muse loses its wings. And I'm sure it hurts you, Muse. There's probably a muse out there that spent a lot of energy and effort helping that writer get off the ground, giving them ideas, only to see those ideas just shot to hell. Not because they weren't executed properly, but because that writer, that artist, couldn't seem to pull their head out of their ass long enough to realize that the world is growing smaller and smaller and they gotta be a good person. It's not that hard. It really, really isn't. Look, I know I was going to talk to you about, once again, I was going to talk to you about a specific technique that I use with my words. I'll get to it, I promise you. Next week, Muse, when we have this conversation, unless something absolutely comes up that I have to talk about, I'm going to talk about this one particular technique that I use that I think it's pretty cool. I borrowed this technique from the world of music. And it works really well with writing. Anyway, now that I've teased it. So speaking of defying gravity, it's in the hands of the editor. Yay! And the last beta reader that read it, her response was very simple. She said, I loved this book so much, all I want to do is read it again right away. That's the best compliment I can get. I'm really excited about this book, especially right now. Especially considering what I just talked about, where theaters are closed, actors can't do what they want to do, and I am publishing a book wherein a young man gets to experience his first acting in his first Broadway show, and something truly magical happens. Magical realism happens. Never been so proud of a book. It's very personal to me because it speaks very much to how I do what I do on the stage and what sometimes happens to me while I'm on the stage, and the joy that I receive from being on the stage. Anyway, that's all I got, Muse. I will let people in on this conversation, unlike last week. So I apologize again for last week, but sometimes it happens. Anyway, Muse, thank you again for just being you, for not being a dick, and helping me to not be a dick. You, Muse, yeah, you're awesome.